This is Real Estate This Week with Stephen Gasque, continuing 16 years on air and online, helping you succeed in buying, selling, and investing in property. The best real estate strategies out there just for you.
Welcome to Real Estate This Week. Hi again, I'm Stephen Gasque, and I'm delighted you're with us as we talk about how to nail it every time, no matter what kind of real estate you want to do. Just you, me, and the best real estate guests in the nation. Today, we'll answer a huge question when you're selling your house. Which offer is best? Highest price? Well, not always. Sometimes price is down the list. So, let's ask a real estate expert why. Joining us now is Donna Evers, one of the top real estate professionals in America. Donna is with TTR Sotheby's in Washington, D.C., Maryland, and Virginia, representing buyers and sellers from the city to the suburbs and all the way out to equestrian properties in Virginia. And her real estate career spans more than 40 years. Donna, welcome to Real Estate This Week.
Thank you, Stephen. I'm glad to be here.
I am so glad you're with us. And so, Donna, first of all, how's business in the greater Washington, D.C. area?
Business is great. And, we've had several years of greatness here in terms of sales and also prices increasing in value. And so every year it's a little harder for buyers, but it certainly is great for sellers. And there's properties are selling. Things are moving along. And I'm very glad to hear that, because at the very beginning of the year, Stephen, we were a little bit worried and things were just a little bit slower than we anticipated because of the financial insecurity that seemed to be, foremost. But now we've gotten beyond that and everything's back in gear again.
That is great to hear. And Donna, I know that you represent some of the most beautiful properties in the Washington, D.C. area. So let's find out about the basics of selling those properties, beginning with condition. Donna, how beautiful does a house have to be?
As beautiful as it can be, and the price will depend on how beautiful it is or how good it looks, because people's emotions kick in before their brain can. And so when they approach a house, when they drive up to it, when they walk into it, their emotions are talking to them loud and clear. And and you can't change that. That initial impression, emotional impression that people get is very wrong. And we want it to continue to be very positive as they walk through the house. And that's why we are doing so much work in preparing properties for market, getting them to look as good as they possibly can look.
I see. And Donna, also, I know you follow the market very closely, so you'll pretty much know what to recommend that the seller asks for their listing price. But what other data do you use to determine that perfect price?
Well, we look at what else has sold, obviously, recently in the area that are what we call comparables for that particular property. And then we use that as a way to determine what it's going to be priced at. And then if it does need changes to be made, painting and things like that, how much is going to be done is going to enter into how we decide what the price can be in the end. And I certainly do count on my colleagues to help, because two sets of eyes are better than one. And when you get a small group of people who really know the market, it's invaluable as far as establishing price.
I see. And Donna, I bet you've had this experience before. You say to a seller, "We believe that based on the market data, your house should sell at, say, $800,000. And then the seller says to you, "Great, let's ask $1 million."
Yes, you have to explain that very carefully, because it seems to go against what people are sort of trained to think, that if you ask a higher price, people will come up to it, or you've got more negotiating room. But in this market where we've got an extreme shortage of product compared to the number of buyers, it's important to price it very fairly. And then everybody rushes in because they think and they see what is a good value. Look, this price is beautiful and it's only priced at X. And so they all want to, more than one person wants to buy it. You can imagine, Stephen, if you have more than one buyer for a property, it changes the grid completely.
Interesting. So let me ask you about that, Donna. If a home in the greater DC area is in great shape and it's priced right, how long before you get offers and how many do you expect?
I would expect more than one. And, location, of course, is the main thing. And how it looks, how it shows, how it's priced, all those things are great. And then I would expect more than one if it's priced correctly and shows beautifully. And definitely, and then when sellers can get more than one offer, as I mentioned, it changes the game completely, and they have a lot more control over how this is all going to end up.
So you will get in touch with your sellers and say, we have offers. Now, if they come in immediately, will a seller think, oh, we should have asked more?
No, because everything happens pretty immediately these days if a property is priced correctly. And that's only because, Stephen, we have more buyers than we have sellers. We're still in that kind of situation.
I see. And so there you are now. Say that it's 5 offers. Is that uncommon in Washington, or does that happen all the time?
It happens, and it happens depending on the price range too, because affordability gets thinner as you go up in value.
I see.
And when you get up over 2 million in the close-in Montgomery County and Fairfax County and certainly DC area, you're getting into more rarefied air and less buyers per house.
Oh, that makes perfect sense. And so, say that you have 5 offers on a home you have listed. What do you do in explaining those offers to the seller and hopefully guiding them towards making the right choice?
Well, I think every real estate agent in the business now does have a sort of a grid that they've devised where they can line up the offers, put everything in writing. That is the positive and the negatives of the offers and the dollar amounts in each case, and line them up. And when you do that, you can clearly see who would be the winners, in this situation. Otherwise, there's just too much to grab onto and try and explain. So we put it all in writing on grids that we create to show what the advantages and disadvantages are of each offer. It's pretty easy when you do it that way.
Oh, that sounds wonderful. But don't many sellers just immediately say, what's the highest price?
Not really. I mean, I think when we explain to them, the complexities of it, and really, honestly, by the time we get through the listing contract with them, they really have a much better understanding of the complexities of making a sale. And so I think they really are very appreciative of the nuances that are involved and what makes an offer a good offer and a strong offer and one that will not fall apart.
I see. And so price is one thing, and it's always a really big thing, but so are the terms of the contract. Donna, can you explain to us what the terms are and which ones are the most important?
Well, yes, if something is a sure thing, that's got to be a good contract, right? And so the less contingencies we have, the happier we're going to be, and the safer the seller is going to be. So if someone can come in with no contingencies, and this does happen, Stephen, in this competitive marketplace, that is, they have the cash to buy the property. They don't have to make it contingent in any way upon a loan. They have already done a pre-inspection of the property, so they know what they are getting in terms of the physical house. And they are ready to go to the closing when it's convenient for the seller. So the more you want the property and the more competition there is, you've got to make this the nicest offer there is so that the seller has everything going for them. And this is how these are the people who are winning the competitive situations.
Excellent. And Donna, what about a buyer who comes in and asks the seller to pay their agent. We know the rules have changed. Has that come into play at all in your market?
It has. I mean, I think everybody is so used to doing it the way we've done it for years and years that it's kind of still going on that way. We just have to explain to everybody the changes and the nuances and to understand, the change in the fact that it has to be expressed in a different way within the contract. But we've sort of come up with forms that are useful and instructive and everybody can understand what's going on. Basically, it's kind of following the same path as always. It's just that now we have explanations of exactly what's going on.
I see. And Donna, for many, many years, sellers did not have to negotiate at all because there weren't enough homes for sale, and anyone who wanted to buy a house had to do it the seller's way. What about now? Is it still that way, or is there actually negotiation?
It's still that way, and it won't stay that way forever, but this is all dependent upon how much product is there and how many buyers are there. And so for these many years now, we've had less product than there are buyers. So we've got strong buyer demand. And that's why the sellers rather, are more or less in control of the situation almost every time.
I see. And so let's talk about some more of the specifics of the actual offer. What about inclusions and exclusions? Do buyers ever want more than they really should get?
Not in this market. Again, Stephen, you can imagine the buyers want to make their offer look as attractive as possible. And when it comes to sort of the chandelier in the dining room or, furnishings that they might like in the house or draperies or whatever, it's best to just stay away from all that if you're a buyer and not ask for anything up front. And perhaps later on you can say, gee, we'd really like to buy the draperies from you or something like that. But these used to be big negotiating items in the past when we had a more balanced market where you've got as many buyers as there are sellers. But it hasn't been the case in the market that we've had now for 8 or 9 years.
And Donna, now let me ask you this. If you were to visualize a winning offer on a property that you're listing, what would be in that offer and why would it be the winner?
It would be the winner if there are the least complications and the highest price. So we want the price to be high, and then we want it to be a sure thing. So if there are contingencies along with that high price, you have to evaluate the risk level that the seller is accepting. And really, if we're representing the seller, we don't want any risks. And we want the highest price possible. So it's a matter of price and quality in terms of the risks that the seller does not have to take. This is what we're going to be evaluating every time.
Oh, that's wonderful. And let me ask you about something that's considered big trouble for a seller. A buyer has a great offer, except for one thing. They want to move in 30 days before closing. Now, why is that considered so dangerous?
Yeah, you just can't do that because when people take possession of a property, even though you've got it written down that they're just renters at their point, they're not owners, you can imagine, Stephen, that people are going to start feeling possessive. They're in the property. So we really don't allow this to happen if we're in charge of the situation and representing the seller. And I haven't seen it happen, frankly, in a really long time. What we do see is buyers letting the sellers stay in the property for 30 days, let's say, for the convenience of the sellers. And they may pay rent or they may not. Because if the buyers want to be really nice to them, they'll say, oh, no, you can stay in for 30 days rent-free.
Oh, that raises a really good point, Donna, because for years we've been hearing that a seller can sell their house fast, but finding their next one might take longer.
Right.
So
Right.
does that accommodate a seller to the point that they might select that offer?
Well, if they need to stay in the house for any reason, it's going to be a pretty big thing. And sometimes even though the buyer doesn't know all these particulars when they sort of make their offer. If the seller comes back and says, we'll take your offer, but we really want to stay in the house for 30 days beyond closing, and we have forms for that, just for everybody's sake, safety's sake, of the terms and so on with which they're going to stay in the property. And if the buyers find out about that and they really want the property, they're going to say, sure, you can do that. Because there's less danger involved in the seller just staying where they've always lived than
Right.
letting a buyer move in before they actually own the property.
And another question about multiple offers. Obviously, the seller can only pick one. Recently, Donna, have you had the experience where the second or third offer comes to you and says, look, if the first one falls apart, we'd like to register this as a backup offer?
Yes, and it's not so much registering it as the backup offer, it's the seller's decision as to whether they want to take a backup or not. And the reason they would is if there's anything that is at all a question in the primary offer that they accept that would make them think, gee, I'd feel a little bit better if I had a backup offer in place. It's not happening that often, Stephen, because the primary offers that people are accepting are so good. You really don't need a backup for it in most cases.
Oh, that's wonderful. And Donna, let's wrap it up with one of the happiest moments of all. Tell us about closing day with your sellers after a really good transaction.
Well, they feel great, when they sign the contract, frankly, because most of the time it's kind of over then. It's a pretty much sure thing in terms of their the thing going through and going all the way to settlement. And yes, they are happy about it, and they feel good all the way along. And there's so much more peace of mind when you really don't have any question marks. It's all settled as soon as they sign the offer because the buyers are willing to be so accommodating in most cases.
Absolutely. And Donna, anything else you'd like to share with us about successfully selling your house in this market?
Yeah, I think sellers are getting pretty good about everything and they really understand. You would think, in a market like this, well, gee, I can sell it myself. The market is so hot. But it doesn't really work that way. And I think so getting a really great agent and sort of, establishing rapport with the person you're going to be working with, and then kind of listen to them and take and if you've got any questions, this is for sellers now, for heaven's sake, put it on the table. There's no such thing as a bad question because we want sellers to feel completely relaxed about what they're doing and that they know they're doing the right thing as they move along.
Absolutely. And Donna, I've got to tell you, I've been hanging on every word as you tell us how to sell your house successfully in 2025. And I want to thank you for sharing your knowledge, your experience, and your strategies with us today on the show. Thank you, Donna.
Thank you, Stephen. Certainly. Anytime.
You're very welcome. Donna Evers with TTR Sotheby's in Washington, D.C., Maryland, and Virginia, representing buyers and sellers for more than 40 years.
You're listening to Real Estate This Week with Stephen Gasque.
And now it's time for Beyond the Basics, in which we bring your real estate knowledge to the next level. And today, how much is your house really worth? And why is it so hard figuring that out? Well, the reason is your house gets priced not just one way, but at least 4 different ways. And so let's take a look. Beginning with your home's tax assessment. Your local government will slap a price tag on your house, and based on that, they'll calculate your property taxes. Okay? But that's just government math. It really has nothing to do with your home's actual market value, only how much you pay in taxes. Next, the list price. Now that's a lot closer to its real value. That's what you ask for the house when you sell it. And it's based on comparable sales and other data in your neighborhood right now. It's a good estimate, but still an estimate. It's just what you're asking. Which brings us to the next way to price your house, the appraisal. Now that's an in-depth examination of your home's size, location, and condition compared to other houses nearby. That's what lenders use when you get a mortgage. Again, it's an estimate, but a really good estimate. But the real value of your home, its actual worth, is not an estimate at all. And you find that in the sale price, what someone actually pays to buy your house. That is the gold standard. Better than assessment, better than the list price or the appraised value, because it's not an estimate. It's what the house actually sold for. So, every way your home's value is measured has its purpose. Taxes, marketing, appraisals, but the sale price is the real deal. Until, of course, overall home prices rise or fall. When that happens, it would probably affect the value of your house too. But fortunately, most of the time, prices rise by a little or a lot. And that's one big reason home ownership rocks. Next time on Real Estate This Week, the summer market, which might be a shifting market, will bring you to a city with lots of homes for sale. Great for buyers, but what about sellers? The summer market is next on Real Estate This Week. And until then, I'm Stephen Gasque, and thank you for listening.
A brand new episode of Real Estate This Week with Stephen Gasque drops every Thursday, everywhere. And you're invited to listen, subscribe, and follow us. Just look for Real Estate This Week with Stephen Gasque. The best real estate strategies out there, just for you.